Today I will be refuting Hannah's claim that technological advancements in artificial intelligence will lead to a disruption in the economy. So her secondary claims were: one, that artificial intelligence offers an attractive method of cheap and efficient labor; two, that there are no current explicit limitations to the practical applications of artificial intelligence; and three, that artificial intelligence will replace humans in specialized jobs. She first argues that because artificial intelligence offers cheap and efficient labor, that jobs will be replaced and unemployment will occur. However, it has been shown throughout history that cheaper and more efficient labor through automation has never led to a disruption in the economy through unemployment. Kenneth Rogoff, a professor of economics at Harvard University, has found that a similar fear was shown during the beginning of the industrial era. Many people were afraid that the less need of labor would lead to unemployment. However, this was never the case. This was not the case. Jeffrey Williams and another professor of economics at Harvard found that during the industrial era, the unemployment rate was at most 8%. This is not a normal rate by any means, because unemployment rates have always resided between 3 and 10%, depending on where the economy lies in the business cycle. Her second claim was that there are no current explicit limitations to the practical applications of artificial intelligence. However, she only offered one example of this through self-driving vehicles and how they have the potential to replace all transportation-related jobs. I believe this is not sufficient evidence in proving that there are no limitations to the applications of artificial intelligence. Furthermore, she assumes that self-driving vehicle technology is the only factor that will lead to the replacement of all transportation jobs. However, jobs such as bus driving, which is one of the examples she pointed to for the jobs that will be replaced, requires more than just driving. Responsibilities such as answering questions by the passengers and securing wheelchairs for the disabled are also part of this job and will need to be automated. Her third claim was that artificial intelligence will replace humans in specialized jobs. However, I do not believe that this will be the case because due to public attitudes towards robots in place of specialized jobs. A Pew Research Center found in a poll of 4,135 U.S. adults found that the majority of people will choose not to ride in driverless vehicles, not use robot caregivers, nor will they apply to jobs that use an automated job applicant selection program. It shows that because people are so adamant in robotic service, that this will prevent these jobs from being taken over. Furthermore, there will always be more work to do, even if these specialized jobs are lost. In a curious case studied by Kenneth Rogoff, he found that in the chess industry actually had a mini boom in their industry since computer programs entered the chess scene. Many were worried in 1997 when IBM's Deep Blue beat the world chess champion Garry Kasparov. They feared that this would lead to chess becoming obsolete. However, the opposite effect occurred, and a greater interest was shown in chess by a new generation of students, and this created more jobs for chess professionals because they had more tutoring jobs, I guess, or in the chess industry. This shows that no one can predict how the market will transform jobs in the wake of artificial intelligence. And that is why I do not believe that artificial intelligence will lead to the disruption of the economy.
All right, the structural stuff is all fine. You lay out the advocate's claims pretty clearly. You respond to them one at a time, so that's easy to follow. On the first point, where you challenge the relationship between this kind of automation and unemployment, you give us a historical comparison that I thought worked pretty well, suggesting that similar fears during the Industrial Revolution were not ever validated, and that's a good point to make on this particular situation. I think there are always arguments. You said it at one point, I think, down below, that says, that there's always work to be done. It's just that the nature of the work is going to change to some degree. I think that's probably a good long-term strategy for this particular issue. And what that work's going to be, it may not be something that we know yet because we haven't invented those kinds of things. AI may be the thing that invents those sorts of things. The idea about no explicit limits. The technology might be able to do things, but there are limitations that are imposed either by human attitudes or behaviors or rules put in place. The example of autonomous cars, for instance, is, I think, an interesting one. The technology is far ahead of human beings' willingness to accept this technology. And, for example, there aren't any states that allow autonomous cars to be operating except in experimental situations. In California, there has to be an operator there. You can't just hop in the Johnny cab and take off. It doesn't work that way yet. So there is a lot of hesitation about these kinds of things, and there is kind of a regulatory process based on human experience and examples that is not being considered here. I think that's maybe an argument that could be developed a little bit. The notion that there are other jobs available or that come about that can't be artificial intelligence answering questions, I think that one is a little problematic because that's probably more likely than driving the bus. That the artificial intelligence on the bus could answer any of those questions. But other kinds of things: securing passengers, responding to needs and emergencies, taking care of people's comfort, packing and unpacking. That there's always going to be a need for some human component in that. I think that's the argument that you want to be making. And on the third point, about the public's acceptance of these things, I think you do suggest that there is some reservation and resistance to some of those kinds of things, and that we've got this false assumption that the technology is going to replace human beings. And then you had a good counterexample, although I don't really know what chess professionals there are and what the chess industry consists of. That seems a little odd to me, but whatever. You've got an example, so it works for the purposes of the argument. Thank you.